What we don't want to do is keep things in the past tense or the future tense. So they said, I'm just looking. So in order to not come off like a slimy salesperson, we have to meet them where they're at in their timeline. If they're just looking, they probably don't have a timeline yet. Or they do have one and they're just saying just looking to kind of push you away, right? Which we'll uncover either way. But a lot of times, if we ask a question that is in the past when they said, well, I'm just looking right now. Well, what made you start looking in the first place? I'm just looking. Like that question doesn't make sense, but it's something that we tend to ask because we're trying to go into sales mode and we want to figure out how I want to get their motivation. It's too early for that. They told us they're just looking, so we don't want to ask that. What made you start looking in the first place? That's like being at the mall and you're browsing and the lady comes by and is like, hey, can I help you? What can I help you with? And you say, I'm just looking. And she says, well, why are you in the mall in the first place? You're like, I'm just looking. It's the same thing. It's the same thing that we do to our clients. We're like, oh yeah, I'm just looking. It's the same thing. So we're being that mall salesperson. We're like, yeah, it feels confrontational. You're like, I told you I'm just looking up, right? And now we're out of rapport. So this doesn't matter yet, right? Why they're browsing at 2 a.m. on Zillow, that's their business, right? We don't need to find that out yet. We also don't want to future pace too much. Well, when are you going to buy? When do you think you'd want to buy? We're not there yet. This is an important question to ask later, but we just started talking to them and we come off like, it's kind of like, I like to use the analogy of dating a lot, right? If you're immediately like going for, people are like, ew, you're desperate, you're thirsty. Yeah, it's weird. Like, when are we going to sleep together? Whoa, I just met you. Like, we're not doing that yet. Like, chill. And it's the same energy, right? You can't push things too quickly. So when do you think you are going to buy? Like, that has nothing to do with me looking at houses, because that's where I'm at right now. I'm just browsing. So we need to meet people where they're at and talk about that first. Then we can ask some of more of these questions. Another thing we don't want to say, when you're ready, what houses do you want? Well, when you are ready to buy, like, and now we're in this mode of, well, it's only okay to look at houses if you're ready to buy. And so they're immediately like, well, I don't want to talk to you because I'm not ready to buy. But we ask this too. Well, okay, cool. You're just looking, but like, when you are ready, what would you like? It's the same thing, right? We're trying to push them into being ready before they're ready. We don't want to ask that either. Or another past tense, immediately we'll say, oh, have you been working with an agent? Like, I'm looking at houses. Like, it's a weird question to ask. All of these questions are good questions, but they're not good right now. So we can ask these later when we have more information, when we're more in rapport. But starting off the bat with these questions is kind of makes it feel like an interrogation. And it's obviously all of these questions are only for the benefit of you as the agent, not for the client. So we have to make the conversation fun for the client. So instead, we want to keep things in the present tense, right? We want to build rapport or try to gently qualify in a way that makes sense. So some things to say instead, if they say, I'm just window shopping. Okay, awesome. Do you live here now, or are you kind of thinking of relocating here, right? What are you doing now? You're window shopping now? Do you live here now? We're staying in what's going on right now. We're not talking about when we're looking to buy. We're not talking about when we're relocating. If we are, we're just cool. We're just talking to each other. What's happening right now? Cool. From there, we can ask more questions, right? Depending on what they say, and we are opening up the conversation. As you're seeing what's out there, similar to what Jennifer said, what neighborhoods interest you the most, right? As you're just looking, right? I'm not saying when you're ready, what do you like the most? I'm just like, hey, as you're kind of checking stuff out, you're browsing around, seeing what things cost, what neighborhoods have caught your eye, or what have you seen, right? This is keeping it in the right now. What are you looking at right now? What do you think about what you're looking at? Not when are you going to do something about it, or how much money are you going to spend? Let's just talk about what you're doing right now. Cool, that's awesome. Do you own your house now, or are you renting, right? This one's a little, I wouldn't ask this one first because this one gets a little more qualifying, but this is still keeping in what's going on right now. Oh, cool. You're looking, do you own right now, right? We can ask this, I would ask this as a follow-up to some of these other ones. I wouldn't start with this because this still doesn't have to do a ton with what they're doing, but one of these two to start. Okay, and once they've answered that, hey, are you living here or thinking of relocating here? Oh, we're thinking of relocating. Cool, now we can talk about that, right? We've opened the door a little further. So the whole point of this is we have to just open the door a little bit at a time, or people are going to shut us down. So keeping the kind of main thing from this to take away is we want to just focus on meeting people where they're at. We can put on our sales hat after we have more information, we've gained their trust, we built rapport. But if we go in too quickly with just LP momming people, it's like, this conversation is clearly for you as the agent and not for them, right? So the whole point of this, how do we make them feel comfortable? Let's have a fun conversation. Sales is fun. This career is cool because you just get to talk to people. So forget about all of the other stuff. We don't need to talk about real estate yet. Like, Just talk to people about what they're doing now. Let's have a fun conversation. Cool. Let's talk about what you've been up to. Okay, now we've softened it. Now I have permission to open the door. I can ask you more of those questions like, okay, well, I know you're just browsing, but have you thought about moving in the next year or so, or thought about what that could look like for you? Is that something that you've even considered? Oh, well, I don't know. Now, okay, great. Now we can put on that sales hat and ask these other questions, but we're shooting ourselves in the foot by doing this too soon.